Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast, where we aim to inspire and motivate people to never give up on themselves or their dreams. We will chat with highly successful people from all walks of life and discuss what motivates and drives them to successfully attack life head on and never give up. Welcome to episode number 16 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and the theme of the day is time management. Our quote of the day comes to us from Jim Rohn. Either you run the day or the day runs you. This episode of the No Quit Living podcast is brought to you by the I3 Initiative. In today's society, it is easy to get caught up in the drama, negativity, and uncertainty in the universe we are a part of. Against those challenges, we are committed to make the world a better place through improvement, impact, and integrity. You are invited to join our mission and learn more about our book club, membership, live events, and mastermind at i3initiative.com. That's the letter I, the number 3, initiative.com. I'm thrilled to bring you today's episode. As one of the true authorities when it comes to time management, I think you will really enjoy today's guest. In addition to being a New York Times best-selling author, he also hosts one of the best up-and-coming podcasts on iTunes. His positive and upbeat approach towards life is very inspiring. I'm grateful to introduce and welcome Kevin Kruse. Kevin, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Chris, thanks. I appreciate the invitation.
It's great to have you here. With all the constant negativity throughout the media today, I wanted to ask if you had a personal story you could share with our audience about perseverance or perhaps a challenging time that tested you, but you kept on going and never quit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the big picture is really what your show is all about is I think, entrepreneurs, a true entrepreneur, that word fail doesn't even resonate, doesn't even have a definition because you either win or you learn. You win or you get information, you get feedback. And so I continue to fail all the time, whether it's with my books, my speaking, my businesses, but it's just feedback that I adjust and keep plowing on. And I think one of the early and biggest, quote unquote failure stories or perseverance stories I have was the first time I started a company when I was 22 years old. And the beginning of that story actually goes further back, which is when I was a kid. It was literally, I remember, it was April 1980. My father had a company and it wasn't doing well. I knew it wasn't doing well, but I didn't realize just how bad things were until I'm playing on the front lawn with a friend of mine. And this Corvette pulls up to the curb, and we weren't living in a poor neighborhood, but we didn't see many Corvettes around. And I thought the guy must have been lost, like he was just going to ask for directions or something. And this big guy gets out of the car, dark black suit, mirrored sunglasses like cops like to wear. And he only had one arm, which was also another interesting thing. He had his right sleeve pinned up. And he comes marching up to me and asks if my dad's home, and he wasn't. And then this guy shoves his business card and he says, "You tell your dad he's got to call me. He had better call me." And he drives off. And I'm thinking, whoa, what is going on? And that night, my dad came home after dinner, and I hand him the card and tell him about this, scary one-armed man. And he just tosses the card down. Doesn't say anything. And I say, what's the guy want? And he says, money. He wants his money. And I said, geez, well, are you going to call him? He says, no, I ain't going to call him. Well, why not? Aren't you scared he's going to come back? And he finally looked up at me. He says, Kevin, he says, I'm not scared because there's nothing left for them to take. What I didn't even realize is my dad's business went under. He went bankrupt. And we lost everything. And within weeks, we would literally move out of that house, and no more did I have that front lawn and the neighbor up the street to play with or anything else. I mean, it happened fast. And that night I had a little journal even back then. And I wrote, I don't care what it takes. When I grow up, I'm going to have lots of money. Now that sounds kind of funny now as an adult, like, I don't know, greed is good, Wall Street or something. But, I was writing it as a 12-year-old kid. And from the perspective of, I'm never going to have a one-armed man show up and throw me out of my house. And I'm actually looking at that journal. I've got it on my desk even to this day. And so go to when I graduate out of college, first kid in my extended family ever to go to college, work my way through a state school. And I've never forgotten about I'm going to make money. I'm going to become, financially independent. I'm going to beat that one-armed man. And I start a company right out of college, 1989. And at the time, I mean, it was personal computers were big. It was gold rush time. I mean, Buddy and I started a company, and whether it was hardware, people were selling computers. Bill Gates was amazing. Steve Jobs was amazing. It was just really heady times, and failure didn't even come into my mind. I mean, how could we fail? I mean, it was just going to be amazing. This was going to be easy. I fashioned myself as like the next Bill Gates, the next Steve Jobs. Now, I had no money, Chris, so I had to make a choice: get an apartment or get an office. So I did the logical thing and I got an office. Back then, it wasn't such a cool thing to be working from home. That looked weird. And I just got this one-room office, subleased from an accounting firm. And I lived there. They didn't know it. I would work till midnight, lay down underneath my desk, sleep until about 5:30, and then I would get up and leave the building before the real workers showed up, so they wouldn't know that I was sleeping there overnight. And I just would go down the street, shower at the YMCA, and then drive back as if I was arriving to work. Now, I did this every single day, weekends, holidays, Christmas, my birthday. I didn't take one day off, living out of this room, showering at the YMCA. And finally, I hit the 1-year mark, and the lease there was up. And I had maxed out all my credit cards, deep in debt, had not gotten any traction with the business. And, looked into that YMCA mirror one morning, and there certainly wasn't Bill Gates or Steve Jobs looking back. I mean, I had dropped, 30 pounds because I wasn't eating. I was stressed out. I just no sleep. It was bad. And I knew that I had to quit. But again, quit didn't mean quit and consider myself a failure, or that was a waste of time, or that I'll never do that again, or whatever. It was, quit living out of my office, quit doing what I was doing, and just go lick my wounds. And I, got a day job and paid off some credit card debt. And it was only about a year and a half later, and I tried it again. And oddly, that company didn't work out either. They say third time a charm. And so it was really the third one that worked. But Chris, I got to tell you, like I went in all cocky and arrogant in that first company, totally whiffed it. But again, even when I'm like, okay, I've got to stop doing this, it wasn't stop forever. It was just stop, regroup, and then try again.
That's a great story. And I think maybe the third time is the charm, but it talks a little bit about perseverance and your perseverance, but more talks about your character in regards to not quitting and not giving up. And I commend you for doing that. And obviously you've led to the success you've had today. In regards to personal development, a lot of our listeners are into personal development. And I was curious if you have a personal favorite book, or perhaps you've read something recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, Chris, I'm a book junkie, always have been, big time reader. And so, there's not one book. I mean, when you think about the classics, I certainly, many people would suggest, and I would agree, like, Think and Grow Rich is a great one to read. Man's Fate by Viktor Frankl is just a great, life-changing, life-affirming book. But I think, one that is, a more recent, more of a big, it was kind of like of a management breakthrough. How do I be a better leader? Was one by Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here won't get you there. And maybe that's a little bit of a more recent book that I think people should check out.
No, that's a great book. And I myself too am an avid reader, and that's actually on my bookshelf. So I would definitely recommend that to the listeners. Speaking of books, your book, The 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, I thought was absolutely tremendous. You interviewed billionaires, Olympians, entrepreneurs, and many other successful people from all different walks of life. I was curious, what gave you the idea to write this book, and how did you get these amazing people to help with?
Yeah, Chris, that's a nice way of saying, why in the world did you think that people needed yet another time management book? Well, so to answer that question, I had been writing on, leadership and management, but I just had one of those moments where I thought, all right, what should the next book be? And if let's say I only had 1 year left, what would I want to write about? And I think, some of the secrets to success are goal setting, time, relationships, and environment. And I just thought, let me write about, one of those 4 obsessions of mine, which is time and productivity. And so I didn't, I've had quite a journey. I was horrible with time management. I share my story in the book. And then later I got to literally where I could 10x the size of my business with 1/3 the hours. I was working about a 4-day work week and had, over a $10 million a year business, which I eventually sold. And it was just night and day from the way I used to work. But I didn't want to just share my own approaches. So I kind of like Think and Grow Rich. It's like, well, let me find the most successful people I can and ask them, hey, what's your number one secret when it comes to time and productivity? I just led with that open-ended question, tried to keep an open mind, and then, looked at all the commonalities. And that's how it came up with the 15 things. And, I think, how did I get Mark Cuban to respond? How did I get these Olympic athletes to respond? How did I get over 200 self-made millionaire entrepreneurs to respond? It's the first lesson in any kind of sale, and I was trying to sell, like, give me your secret. It is a numbers game. And so while I had 200 entrepreneurs answer my question and follow-up questions about time and productivity, there were about 600 that never responded to my emails or phone calls at all. Well, I got Mark Cuban and Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank to respond. Damon John didn't. Lori Grittier didn't. And so I had 3 times the number of no's than I had yeses. And I think the reason why I was still able to get 1 out of 4 people, including, a lot of billionaires who never heard of me before, was because, I would go through email. I think a lot of people still read their own email, or their assistant prints it and hands it to them or something like that. And I kept it short. And it was just sort of that, I think most people want to give back. Most people want to, anyone who's achieved anything, like, they've had help from others. And so when you get to a certain place, you want to make sure you're helping others. So I think, it was just a very short email that said, hey, working on this project, already interviewed, a handful of people that dropped some names that were recognizable. I want to do a 1-question interview, whether that's via email or phone or Skype. And, I did all of those kinds of things. And that was it. So, everybody is really short on time. But if they can answer a question in kind of like what you're doing, Chris, you've got a short interview format here. And I think that's great. I mean, it's great for the listeners, and it's great for the guests you're bringing on. It's a way to fit it into, a busy schedule.
No, I think you give a great idea. And I think for some of our listeners out there, whether it's business, personal, or what have you, I think sometimes people try to do too much, whether it's a email or a text message or a voicemail. And I think in today's day and age, to your comment a little bit earlier, is people do want to help, but people are also very cognizant of their time. And if you ask for half an hour, 45 minutes, or an hour, I think a lot of times you're going to get that pushback. But in your case, if you just say, hey, I'd love to grab 5 or 10 minutes at your time. And that's the same approach I make with my guest is, look, I'll record on your time. It works best for you. And I think to your message before is people do really want to help.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the concepts that really stood out in your book was actually in chapter 1 when you wrote about the power of 1440. Would you care to elaborate on that just for a bit?
1440, that's the number that can change your life. And I'm looking at a number 1440 that I've stuck to my bottom of my monitor right here. And there are 1,440 minutes in the day. And, when I talk about 15 secrets for extreme productivity, it wasn't like everybody I interviewed did the same 15 things. But if there was one thing that pretty much everybody said, or you could sort of infer from what they were saying, it's like they valued minutes. Ultra successful, extremely productive people, they think in minutes, not hours. And so whether it's practical stuff, like most people, if you pop open your Google Calendar, by default, it's set for 30 minutes or 60 minutes. That's the length of an appointment. These people, they're thinking in 10-minute chunks of time, maybe 15-minute chunks of time. Richard Branson saying he can't think of a meeting that couldn't really be accomplished in 5 to 10 minutes. It was all these internet CEOs or Silicon Valley CEOs who are talking about literally stacking individual meetings one after another. They'll do 6 in an hour, in and out, 10 minutes. So I heard that over and over again. And I think even at a less practical but more important level, it's realizing that, I mean, money, we can lose it and get it back. I've certainly done that many times. Time, once it's gone, it's gone. It's literally our most important asset. And we can accomplish a lot in a minute. I mean, whether it's taking a deep cleansing breath to reduce our stress and improve our health, whether it's writing, saying thank you to a team member to show recognition, whether it's telling our kids that we love them, whether it's banging out 30 sit-ups. I mean, there's a lot that you can do with a single minute. And so average people, average performers, they just go about their day. I mean, they just like, I got to move fast. I got to be productive. But they waste a lot of minutes, whether it's on Facebook and Snapchat or, watching reality TV. Even a 5 or 10 minute chunk of time is very valuable. So that's the 1440. There's 1,440 minutes in the day, and you really need to allocate them to what you value. Every minute counts.
That's a great elaboration on that. And I actually have printed up that and written it down in my journal and things in regards to, if you do think about minutes, obviously if you think about 1 or 2 minutes at a time, it doesn't add up to a lot. But to your point, if you think about the Facebook or the Snapchats or the Twitter, and all of a sudden you're doing 5-10 minutes here and there, and you do it 10, 15, 20 minutes during the entire day, all of a sudden it's an hour and a half. And to your point, those minutes do really add up.
Yeah.
Kevin, life is clearly challenging. And as a father, a best-selling author, a podcast host, as well as an entrepreneur, I was curious, what drives you and motivates you to keep going every single day?
Well, it's all about making an impact. I think probably most people in your audience, I mean, that's, if they just ask why enough, they would get down to that too. I think early on, I was motivated by money, by escaping that one-armed man, by being financially independent. And that was the wrong thing to be motivated by. Now, it worked, but during the 10 years it took me to really get to the success I wanted, life was not fun, and life was exhausting and tiring and stressful. And because I guess I feared the one-armed man so much, I kept going. But it was not a great way to live, and it could have turned bad in any given day. And it was only after actually getting to that goal and realizing, I still don't really feel that different. Life doesn't seem that different. I'm not happy. I'm not happy with where I am. And I did, some soul searching. It really comes down to, I feel best when I'm getting an email from a stranger and, she says, Kevin, read your book and you changed my life. Kevin, listen to that podcast and you changed my life. Kevin, you answered my email and you changed my life. And I think that's really what life is about, is helping others, giving back, trying to put a dent in the universe. But the way you do that is one person at a time. And so that's literally it, Chris. I just, I hope to make an impact on a lot of people, but every day I wake up and my goal is to actually help one person. If I've helped one person, it's a great day.
That's awesome. And I think if everybody did that, even every other day, we'd be in a much, much better position in many ways. I was curious if you have a specific morning or a daily ritual that you feel has helped to lead to your professional as well as your personal success.
Well, I didn't have one for a lot of years early on. I think I should have. I would have had more balance and greater success. It was from hearing from so many of these people that I interviewed about their morning rituals that I have adopted one more consistently. And specifically, everybody I interviewed, they were doing things both for their mind and their body. So mind-wise, and everybody's got to do their own thing. But for myself, I reflect on my one sentence mission. And I had lunch with Ken Blanchard a lot of years ago, and he told me, that's the way he starts every day, is reflecting on his personal mission or purpose statement. And so I just kind of say it in my mind to provide life-changing hope and knowledge so people can achieve their full potential. I just kind of remind myself of that. Then I do a simple gratitude practice. I try to think of 3 things I'm grateful for and really, sit with them, feel them. And then, it's sort of goal setting intentions. It's very, I like fewer things rather than more. So I just have my 3 to thrive, which is health, wealth, and relationships. And so in each of those areas, I will simple example, if I'm thinking about relationships, I just might be thinking about, all right, I'm thinking about my kids. What can I do today to, maintain my relationships with my kids? And it will just remind me to send a snap to my daughter who's off to college today, or, oh yeah, Owen's got a big test tomorrow and I got to, carve out an hour tonight to help him study for that test. So that's it. It's mission, gratitude, and then kind of reflecting on my goals and intentions. And then physically, I'm a big believer. I think people need three things in the morning: water, protein, and some kind of cardiovascular workout. So I like the green protein smoothies. You kind of just bang that down in a minute or two, get 20 or 30 grams of protein within 20 or 30 minutes of waking up, get a full glass of water, get some greens. And then I think I don't think people should be scared of the cardiovascular stuff. Even a fast walk around the block is going to be helpful. 5 minutes. I like to do 20 minutes of HIIT training on the treadmill. And I'm not a perfect being. I mean, when I travel, there are days when I will mess this up or miss some things. But when I'm at my best, I'm hitting all of these things.
I think you touched on something. You should coin or trademark the water, protein, and cardio. I think you could, that could be your next $1 million or $1 billion idea.
Love that.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Geez. I don't know. I don't, this is the off the top of the head answer because dead or alive, if you go back dead, I'm sure there's all kinds of greats out there. And I don't know, to me, let me go more modern though. I am fascinated by Elon Musk. Even among entrepreneurs and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs that have achieved a lot of great stuff, he is really changing the world, changing the trajectory of the future. There aren't many people that can say that. So I wouldn't mind having dinner with Elon, and I'll have to come back to you with some of the great figures in history.
Now that's a off the norm question, and we've got some really good interesting answers, and some people that are way out of the box thinking. So I really appreciate that. Kevin, in addition to your new book, Text Me, Snap Me, Ask Me Anything, which came out this past February, I was curious if you're working on anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners.
Well, I appreciate the plug for the book. That was another passion project just around, people ask me about, how do you build your tribe? How do you build your platform? And it gives some specifics about how I do, but it also gets back to, helping one person at a time. Since writing that book, my next startup just came out of stealth mode about a couple months ago, and it's called LeadX, LEADX. And, my mission with LeadX is basically to provide free world-class leadership training and professional development to anyone, anywhere. And we've launched with hundreds of articles and free online content from dozens of great thinkers. The LeadX podcast is a daily show where I interview, again, another expert or author, and it's almost like a book of a day type interview, very short, but so that you can get that wisdom every single day. And we're, launching very soon a whole online academy, again, free leadership training, free productivity training, and lots of other categories. Very excited about it.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. And I would just like to throw another plug out there is I'm definitely an avid listener of your podcast, and I think you've had some great stuff on there. So I would recommend our listeners checking that out as well. Before we let you go, Kev, I just wanted to ask you if you have any parting words for our audience.
Well, if people were to search my name up on, say, Twitter, what they're going to find is one quote I said years ago, and there's like 100 of those statements for anything I've ever said about leadership or time. But the quote is, "Life is about making an impact, not making an income." And for those who are skeptical of that, the second part is, the irony is that the more of an impact you make, the more of an income you're going to make. You want to be a millionaire, help 1 million people, or at least 100,000. You want to be a billionaire, find out a way to help 1 billion people. And that's really the takeaway. Now, I learned this lesson late, but thankfully it wasn't too late. And what I found is, I built some multi-million-dollar companies when it was all about the money and I was all about the stuff. But when I got focused on making an impact and then it exponentially got easier, better, faster. One leads to the other anyway. So that'd just be my parting thought.
That's a great parting thought. And last question, and I promise it's an easy one. What is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Yeah, they should check out leadx.org, leadx.org. And my email is kevin@leadx.org. I answer every email. Hope they'll check out the site. And I'm all over the place on social media, but email's the easiest.
Well, listen, Kev, I really, really appreciate both your time as well as your insight. And for those listeners, I would definitely recommend not only your new book, but as well your book I mentioned earlier is the 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management. And I would also recommend people checking out your website, which is leadx.org. So, Kevin, thank you so much for your time as well as your input.
Thanks, Chris.
To sum up today's episode in our theme of the day, time management, Kevin delivered some great information when it comes to maximizing both your time as well as your productivity. Kevin shared the number 1,440 and how that number could change your life. 1,440 is the number of minutes in each day. In Kevin's book, The 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, he interviewed billionaires, Olympic athletes, and highly successful business leaders and entrepreneurs. He discussed how many of those top successful people operate in 10 to 15-minute time blocks. In his closing remarks, Kevin was very adamant that you can earn back money, but time you can't, and often adjusting those minutes can have a major impact. So the question for you today is, how do you use your minutes? Do you master your time, or do your minutes master you? I challenge you to take a detailed look at your time management. Do you waste precious minutes, or do you maximize your 1,440 minutes every single day? And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.